Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're over at the Pablo Center, which is only a few blocks away from my store in downtown Eau Claire. I can't believe I haven't done an interview here yet. I don't know why I hadn't really thought about it. I'm always going out to LA or going out to New York, Chicago, Texas, wherever to try to get a hold of people, thinking there's not that many creatives that are around here just because the stories overlap. And for whatever reason, I was sitting in my hot tub the other day and I was like, I wonder who the Pablo has coming, because I just saw the Ani DeFranco show. So I looked up all the people coming and I was like, we have an illusionist in Eau Claire. The last time I did an interview with an illusionist was with Wayne Hoffman way down in Florida. And he's the man, but I don't want to go back to Florida to interview another illusionist. And so I saw this guy, Reza. So I sent an email saying like, hey, management, is there any way I can get a little bit of this dude's time? And lo and behold, he agreed. So welcome to the show, Reza the Illusionist.
Thanks, man. It's cool.
Dude, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. You have an early show today. It's at like 3 o'clock, huh?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Usually it's at night, but today...
Yeah. Where'd you come from? Like, well, I mean, like you're on a tour at the moment, I would assume. Yeah.
So last night we were in, I knew you were going to ask me this, Cedar Falls, Iowa last night. And then we were at the Hard Rock in Sioux City, Iowa the night prior to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where are you headed now? Down towards Madison? Are you doing like a big loop?
No, we head back. I think we played Branson next, and then we're in Arkansas. And I should have looked more.
You lose track
that.
Because it's so many of them, huh?
Yeah, I'd have to look after that. But I know we're on a run here where we play like weekend dates and then loop back for like 2 or 3 weeks now.
Sure. And you've been based out of Branson? Are you still living in Branson?
Yeah, it's a really cool hub. So it's like right in the center of the country. So it works out really well. So we can like hit some spots and then come back. And it's a residency there. So there's like 10 million visitors that come to that area for like the theme parks and everything that area has going on, the lakes and all that. So we tap into that and we do shows throughout the year there, and then we do road dates and some international dates and kind of go in and out. Yeah.
So Branson's known for like country music, right? Is that why a lot of people go there?
Yeah. Like a lot of country shows established the town, but then they've died off over time, and like all these theme parks and like the boardwalk area, they've kind of come into play.
Sure.
And it's brought in a little younger demographic. So it works out good.
Yeah. When I was watching interviews about you, I mean, you're from South Dakota, so it's not like you came from this big metro area to begin with, but picking Branson of all places, like, cause you look kind of like punk rock, situation. I guess so do I. And I just thinking of Branson, the only people I know who have gone there specifically for like country music things. So to me, it just seemed out of place.
I know exactly what you're saying. It's like yin yang. We've tapped into the market coming into Branson because the other market has exited. But the reason why I started there is that was like the vacation destination when I was a kid.
Oh,
so
sure,
my family
family
would take me there on vacations all the time. And so then after that period of my life, we started touring and we started doing all that. And then I want to look for a home base. And so, Vegas, we went to Vegas first, and we played, small residencies in like New York and places that you would expect. And because of where I'm from being very similar to Branson in terms of like, it's kind of like a small community where just a lot of things happen. And where I'm from, there's like hunting and sports that bring a bunch of people to town. But then when those people leave, it's just like a small town vibe. And you can just kind of walk around and be you. And that's what Branson is. So I kind of vibe with it.
What's the population there? Just curious.
It's like, I think it's under 10,000.
Oh, wow. So it is actually like small.
I think, yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it's like that. And then we built this home on the lake. And so it's removed from all the craziness. There's no strip and traffic. And I mean, there is, but it's not like the Vegas Strip. It's easier to navigate. So I don't know. It's not for everybody, but I kind of found it for me.
Yeah. Do you think it's because you never really spent a ton of time in those big cities that you didn't succumb to getting stuck in that whole keeping up with the Joneses of like, what are the other entertainers have? Because I go out to LA a lot, so I see this a lot. they make way more money than me and they live in this tiny little place. And but to them it's like, and I'm not saying they only do it for status, but I think you get caught up in that. You look at your peers and you go, what do they have? Okay, I need to be in this area. I need, so that way you can compare versus like, I mean, for me here, I think I can relate. I'm from here, but still the property size I can have, I'm not saying I have a baller house, but I own a skateboard shop, I do a podcast and I paint stuff. Like I shouldn't be able to have a nice house with a nice property with a hot tub at all. Like that wouldn't exist if I was in LA, but I see what I can get here. And to me, I don't care how my stuff compares financially or anything else to all these other people. It's what can I do with the resources that I have where I want to be. And this is like perfect for me.
It's exactly it. Yeah. A lot of people are moving to areas like this from the higher populations for that reason. It's just, this whole place just has a different rhythm to it. And it's all about what you're used to and what you like. The people who live in LA, they sit, an hour in traffic, but they do that willingly because that's where their heart is. The property value difference alone seems to me like, I think our home in Branson is like 8,000 square feet. So people flying from LA, they're like, this is a $30 million mansion. It's not that, but that's the perception. So it's like, well, if you're willing to give up what you've got there and come here, you can have, this lifestyle. But the same thing, like you hear these like country artists moving from Nashville to like some secluded farm and like growing corn. And people are like, wait, I thought you were like this rock star and why are you on a tractor? But like, that's their vibe. And so you just kind of got to respect that there's all this energy in our minds as artists and you have to have this outlet. And, for me, it's just like sitting on the lake and chilling.
Yeah, that's the best place for me to be able to relax too. I have a cabin up on a lake and it's the same type of thing. Being able to go somewhere where I don't have phone reception and I could just kind of like, I can't work and just focus creatively and just recharging is kind of like the best thing ever for me. So let's take it back a little bit. So you're from South Dakota. What town? It's Brookings, but I don't know anything about that town. What's that town like?
It's a college town. So it's sports and that's it. So I didn't, like we were talking just, in the pre-interview, just when I came in, like about football, and I'm like, I'm out on that. So it wasn't my environment, but it was a cool place to grow up. I made some really good lifelong friends there. I actually got one coming to the show today. So it's, it's a cool place to establish, but it wasn't for me as a trampoline to launch my career out of. I didn't feel like I ever fit in there. I was kind of the odd kid that did something that nobody quite understood at that point.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, how you were able to build it. Because I feel with myself sometimes here, like I was talking to you off mic and really at the beginning of the interview, we are starting to have a lot of these really cool, unique stories come through Eau Claire. And I do still interview a lot of people locally because they're dope, they're my friends, and I love this city, and I always want to talk about this city. But we now, because of the Pablo Center and some other things, like I just did a bunch of backstage interviews for this new music festival we did called Reverb Music Festival. And so that was like All Time Low and Plain White Tees. All these kind of bands just came through. So we're starting to have some people come through, but it's still a little bit limiting. Every time I go to LA, all the people I know there, they're like, man, just stay another week. Because you could talk to this person and this person, because everyone's just kind of right there. So I'm not saying it makes it easier necessarily, but as far as within the business side, there's just more there to be able to kind of trampoline. How are you able to kind of start doing that? We'll gloss over the fact that you, as a kid, were doing all the magic and all that type of stuff, doing little magic shows and things. But as far as like actually switching from like, I'm in middle school, this is what I'm doing for fun, to how do I start to even try to make this a career? Where did you do that?
So it's tricky because with magic, you need like equipment. It's not like music in the sense that you can just get an instrument and start writing. Some of the stuff that you'll see in the show today and that we've developed over the years, we've spent over $100,000 on one specific thing just because of the development that goes into it and the fabrication, the engineering. And so I knew that I wanted this big show, this big elaborate show. Didn't have the resources to do that necessarily. So here's where I started. This is kind of stupid, but I needed an initial investment. I had to earn that at the age of 11, 12, something like that. I called this company that does fundraising for band trips. They give you like a catalog with like candles and wrapping paper. Yeah. And I got them to send me this, even though I wasn't like affiliated with any kind of school or band. I talked to this rep and they're like, all right, I like your story. So they sent me this catalog. I went door to door selling wrapping paper and candles. And people would be like, all right, so where's this band trip? And I'm like, no. So this is my vision. I want to be a magician. This is what I want to do. And all these years later, people come to me still. They're like, I bought a candle from you when you were a kid. So I did that, earned a little bit of money. Took the money. It wasn't enough yet. I reinvested it into another business. I went to like Costco and bought candy bars. And I went to break rooms and I put these little boxes of candy where I didn't have a vending machine. And I built that to the point where I got enough money to buy the vending machines. Eventually, over the course of like 2 or 3 years, as I was practicing magic, I had like this side hustle. I sold this vending company to a bigger company, took that payout, and that then fueled my career. Went to the magic shop, bought all these props, and then I was off and running. So that's my story.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's a great story because people don't realize how much goes into it. They think that something just happens or people just have these things. And that's one of the things I like to highlight when I interview people like you, or really any creative entrepreneur of any kind, performers. Anybody who has reached some level of success, everyone I've ever talked to has done way more behind the scenes leading up to it to get to that point, because you're still really young. So to have the amount of money in just the equipment alone was going to take a long time, and it has to grow from somewhere. But what were the main things you think you learned from that? Because those are super helpful things. Even the hustle, the grind, but like you have to still sell tickets. You know what I mean? Even if you're hiring other people and there's marketing agencies, you're still involved, you know?
Yeah, and that was the challenge, is how do I get people to care about this thing that I care about? I hadn't been on any television shows, any dope podcasts like this one. There wasn't anything for people to know me from. So I went around, I just put up posters, kind of like a band would, just to kind of get discovered. Called the radio stations and like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm here in town. Here's the show. Come see it. And then like 50 people would show up. And it was discouraging. But then I would just go back to those same markets over and over. What I actually did, because I had to figure out like, how am I going to transport? And I won this tour bus. I won like the rock star tour bus. Couldn't get it. So I got this old school bus. I took some rattle can paint to the outside of it to kind of give it a vibe. And my friends and I would just get in this old school bus and took the seats out of the back so I could put a bunch of equipment. That's how we hit the road. So we'd do that. I'd go back to the same markets the next year. And they all like word of mouth spread. They told people. So then 100 people, then 150. And I was like, all right, I got to grow this a little faster. Started posting some videos online. A few of them caught fire. Then some producers saw that, called me, put me on some TV shows, and now we got some momentum. Then I had like opening act spots come up for like Steve Aoki and Huey Lewis in the News and Trace Adkins, and so like various artists in various industries. So my audience started getting more diverse, and then I started pulling more people in, notoriety a little bit here and there. Now all of a sudden I saw the model start to form where most magicians would take the path of, I'm going to be the cruise ship magician or the corporate party, or where you're just performing at a place where there happens to be a bunch of people and you're just the entertainment. They don't care about who that entertainer is. They just care about the fact that, oh, he's a magician. But I was like, I got to break that ceiling. I want them to care about this brand in the same way that they would care about someone's music career, because they've connected with that music. So then that challenge became, how do I make magic like music? I started studying and breaking it down. What makes it tick? And it's like these lyrics, these songs, these are about things that people can relate to. That's why people care about it. So what's that same thing for magic? And I don't know if you've seen some of the things that I've put out more recently, but it's shifted from these weird contraptions where you see magicians with sparkly boxes and samurai swords, and I use power tools, spray paint, even a trick with like an Oreo cookie, and these things now become relatable. The magic connects, and then all of a sudden you grow a connection with your audience.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference. Some people, and I don't know if it's an ego thing or what the deal is, but they really just want to have a bunch of fans. And I get it. Obviously, like that can build your career, and those people will spend money on tickets and whatever, and that's great. But through my show, it's kind of the same way. I interview all these different people, and then some of the people that pay attention to that person now hear about my show. And then, so it's a very eclectic like listenership that way. But I really like the idea of building community way more so than building random fans.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of successful people have really treated it that way. I can't pull any off the top of my head, but well, the ones I can pull off the top of my head are ones I don't want to talk about. But they're, they'll build their own like Facebook groups or through things like Instagram or through, Twitter, whatever. There's these different platforms that they're able to build these huge communities where all these people that are touched by this person that they're a fan of, now they can discuss it, and then that person happens to be in the conversation too.
Yeah.
And I think building those types of relationships are what really, really works. And even through like entrepreneurship, so through my skateboard shop, that's what's really worked. It's been April will be 10 years since I opened, and building the relationships one-on-one with people as they come through the door and actually talking with them rather than focusing on selling any individual item, that is what has slowly grown for everyone in this town to know the brand of passion. Like that's kind of what all my stuff is called. At what point did you leave Brookings and go to Branson? Because we talked about you building up this career, but you couldn't even really make connections in South Dakota. So did you move to Branson like right away when you turned 18?
No, there's a lot in between there, but it was mostly touring where I'd go out initially for like a couple of weeks and a month and then like months. And so I was kind of just living on the road at that point. And that's what eventually drew me to Branson, is because of where it's located. It's like right in the center of the country, and that worked out really well to get in and out of spots. But I did a run in like Acapulco. I think there was like 2 or 3 months there. And then I did this run in the Bahamas, I think like 2 or 3 months there.
Like a residency?
Like a residency,
oh,
yeah.
Cool.
So those were cool. And then I started, just doing these circuits and tours. I did the college circuit, and so I'd go out like in the fall. I'd hit like 2 months worth of universities and all that. So it just seemed like I was living on the road, which I was, which is cool. But then it gets old a little bit, and then that's what started making me think like, where can I go that a lot of people are? I can kind of just sit down for a while, and so that was what led me to that next decision of like, okay, I want to build this spot.
Yeah, you got to have a home base somewhere. How did you, at that point in time earlier on, how did you get all these shows? Was it really reminiscent of going door-to-door salesman with candles, except you were doing email to all the directors, or what?
Yeah, it was, well, for some of the circuits, like the college circuit, there's these conventions that you go to, and all the bookers go there, and you go and you kind of showcase and do that and network. And you do that for 2 or 3 years to build those connections where they're like, oh yeah, you're the guy last year, I saw you do this. And all of a sudden they're booking you.
Sure.
But then all those are stair steps. So it leads to the next thing. There was a period where I want to be more of like the independent label guy. And there was a period where I wanted to get with the agents and make that happen. So I had a great agent in the casino market that would get all these big casinos for me. And then colleges and all that. And then I pull it back in. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to, well, the reason why I don't want to work with some of those agents is they put me all over on these tours. They'll get, big money here, and they'll say, all right, we're going to book you on this show, and we're going to get a bunch of dates around it. Mm-hmm. And then they fall through. So you're going all the way across the country for one show, and then you got to go over here. So it's like the Star of David tour. And I just want to be in more control, more in the driver's seat on what's going on. So I just started bringing people that I thought were really talented. You mentioned Wayne Hoffman earlier. He had a guy that was working with him, and the three of us started collabing, and he would take some of my dates and give them to Wayne, and give him some Wayne dates to me. But I decided to bring him on under my umbrella. And so now he works for me, and now I'm building this infrastructure of people who are all supporting my own brand, my own label, rather than answering to people who are less motivated to be in your pocket.
Sure. I think as you grow, though, a lot of people who are in a creative realm, they just want to focus on the creating, and they don't want to focus on the business. So they end up just kind of like out hiring and trying to find the right people. Finding the right people for me has been something that's pretty much impossible, just because nobody, it doesn't matter who it is going to care as much as you for the thing that you do. They may care a lot, but it's not going to be quite where yours is. So I think you just have to accept that it's not going to be the way you would do it. It's going to be the way somebody else will do it. How have you been able to assemble the right people around you? And especially early on, how could you get people to go with you? Or is it just like friends of yours of like, do you want to go across the country for free and then I'll saw you in half?
Sort of, yeah. I hire by people who come to the shows and are excited about what we're doing, and then they say, hey, how can we be a part of it? Before that, I was putting out casting calls. You go on just to different places. And it's like, send me your resumes. You know, maybe it's like a like Full Sail University. They have like lighting and sound techs. You say, all right, give me your graduates, and you're reading through all this stuff, and you see what they're capable of, but you don't see what they're passionate about. Whereas people that come to the show, they don't always have that skill set yet, but they're like, this show changed the way I see magic, or it inspired me, and I just want to be a part of that. You can teach that person the skill set that they need to know, but you can't teach them passion.
Right.
So I start with, I kind of reverse engineer it. I just get people who are excited, and then these people have been with me. I mean, my bus driver, he's been with me for like 11 or 12 years now. I've got people in the show 10 years plus. And so that model has just really worked for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes people, if they know too much about something, they then know too much about that thing. And it's like, you can't wash it down to nothing and tell them how to do it.
You can't change what they already think they know.
Yeah, exactly. Versus what I found, even with editing my show or with anything else, is like, I know exactly how I want something to be done.
Yeah.
So let me just show you exactly how I want it to be done. And they can not know anything about it, and that's totally fine. I didn't know anything about it either, except I had to learn it through YouTube and through mistakes and everything else, and I figured it out. But I could tell somebody exactly how to do most of the things that I need relatively quickly. And if they really care about it, which is a situation now, my good friend Corey was my intern at my store for like a little over a year, and he helped me with things with my show and everything. And now he runs the store. I'm not even there. Like right now, he's over at the store handling business, and I probably won't even hear about most of the things that happen. And it was because he came in because he was a fan of the show, actually, and really cared about things. So we became good friends, and now he runs things. So let's talk about how you develop your own type of show, because when you look at like magic, there's only so many examples to look at, right? And so as a kid, it's like, well, I want to be as good as this person. But as you grow, you don't really want to be as good as somebody anymore. You want to make your own name and be your own thing.
Yeah.
What have you developed, or how have you developed it to be your own thing?
I started just inventing these tricks, these concepts. And now I'm the only person doing, these specific things. The problem is it's not protectable. You can't copyright these.
Sure.
I mean, you can, like, David Copperfield.
Yeah.
Back in the day, he flew, and then he's like, I want to keep this mine. So he patents the idea, but then you have to publish it, and then it's out there, and you can look it up, and you can see the internal workings of it because it's public.
Wow.
So that, it was, I think, the only time that he did that. Other things, magicians have fought in court and say, you stole this from me and now you owe me money. And those don't end up well. It's just the lawyers end up winning that.
Right.
So it's hard to protect these things. So I try and create things. And then once people have taken some of it, I just create more, and I just kind of keep moving forward. And there's things that I've done in the show for a number of years now that become like these signature pieces that people expect. But then I also want to keep changing the show and keep it fresh, because we do a ton of shows. I do over 300 shows a year. I'm not sure exactly how many.
Whoa.
But that can get old.
Yeah. Well,
Really
especially
fast.
just for yourself. You know what I mean? Of doing the same thing every night. Like, how could you still have fun doing the same thing?
It is. What helps me is a lot of these things that I design are audience involved pieces in the show.
Sure.
And so I'll get people up, and like a couple of nights ago at Hard Rock, we did a late show, and it got wild. The people coming up, I mean, the show ran like an extra 20, 30 minutes because these people were just ridiculous on stage, but I loved it, and the crowd loved it. And so like that, I can't get bored doing that. It's always different. So that's kind of what it has been for me, is like, I want to make something that the audience is really connected to, but also I want to enjoy it too, because if I'm having a good time, the audience will as well. I don't want to be this robotic kind of thing. So it all kind of just, it flows.
Yeah, the energy feeds off each other. What are these things like when people come on stage, and how are you able to like do whatever they're asking on the spot? Because I mean, developing tricks takes a long time. You don't just do it in 5 minutes.
No, we've worked on things for multiple years that never even made it into the show to begin with. We start by building like these prototypes, because it's very expensive to fabricate these big things sometimes. So we build it in like a little 3D model, and we start working with it and say, is this something that can take place? And then the next step into that process is it goes to these engineers in like LA, and it's the same people that design a lot of like sets for movies or props for TV shows. And so they understand how to make something like, for example, if it needs to be very lightweight but look extremely heavy.
Sure.
They could do the art direction on that. So it goes there and then it comes back. And yeah, so this whole thing, I have a warehouse that we then develop all these contraptions, and then it has to, I go into the studio, I start editing music for it. I've even had bands where they've gone back in the studio and they've recut things for me because I need something a little bit different to work with the magic. And then it's the layer of the video wall content. Got to figure out what's the vibe, what's it going to look like. So on all these little facets, I'm over the top of. And so it's kind of like this exhausting thing. But once you get to the finish line, you put it in front of that audience, and that audience has this overwhelming reaction. You can't ask for a better payday than that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You put your entire life into something, and when you can see somebody values what you put your entire life into, it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Better than anything else.
I love the live aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
When you do something for television, for example, you might shoot it and it won't air for 8 months.
Yeah.
And in that period of time, I'm out on the road doing that same trick that I just shot for TV every single day and making it a little bit different, a little bit better. Over that course of time, the trick has become a whole level better.
Yeah.
And then I watch it on TV and I'm like, oh no, we didn't do those changes. And oh, that's the old way of doing that. And it's kind of gross. Where when you're doing something in front of an audience every day, the instant feedback. And the next night, I'll change something because it didn't work that last night. So I really like that. That's what keeps it fresh for me every night. I even film the show still every single night. And at different points in the show, my mic will go off to the audience and then only my crew can hear me. And I make notes the whole time, and they hate this, I'm sure. But I'm always like, okay, no, that didn't work. I'm going to change the pacing of that, or I want that light, I want it over on that side of the stage tomorrow, so it pulls focus there and not over here. And then they give me those notes. I go back and I watch the show. I make the refinements, and then we go on the next night. So that's impossible to get bored when you look at it like that.
Yeah. Well, and if you're always doing your absolute best, I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Four Agreements, but it's a pretty famous book, and it's all about like mindset and stuff. Anyways, one of the main points in it is to always do your best no matter what the situation is. And it refers to even like when you're taking a shower, be fully focused. But really, it's referring to like everything. And if you can go into something knowing that what your best is going to be later on is going to be better, but right now I'm going to do my absolute best and be happy with what that thing is, knowing it's not going to be, as good as it's going to be, because a lot of times people will hold themselves back and say, well, I can't put it out yet because it's not perfect. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, it'll never be perfect. But if you, every single time that you do something, focus on doing it, how can I do it the absolute best I can right now? And then you'll notice what's that small change you can make for the next night or whenever it is. And then the next change and the next change and the next change. And then it's pretty quick, over the course of a month or 2 months, whatever, where all of a sudden you look back and go, wow, I made a lot of changes and now it's way better.
Yeah.
You're talking about all these different people that you've gotten to work with. What was it like the first time you got to work with someone you were a personal fan of, and what was that story?
Switchfoot was the first band that I was just a huge fan of, and they said, hey, come backstage and show us some stuff. And so I did, freaked the guys out, and they brought the cameras out. They're like, hey, let's put you on our podcast.
Were you like at one of the shows, or how did that happen?
Yeah. They came to my hometown.
Okay.
And I think it was just mutual friends that connected us. And at that point, I didn't have much of a career of my own. And they took a personal interest in me, and so they gave me some exposure. So that was a really cool thing. And those guys are just super genuine.
Yeah.
You're in and out of all these different situations where you get to see people for what they really are.
Yeah.
Good or bad. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of people where you're like, man, he's just not what he or she is. It's not what I thought they would be like in person. They might be very dismissive or whatever the case might be. Those guys are just really, really cool. So I would give a lot of thanks to what they did for me and the confidence that they gave me that people are interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think those little interactions, I mean, that was a fairly big one, but I think so I would go to like demos of pro skateboarders and stuff as a kid, right? And those were like the heroes to me to this day, because I own a skate shop. I've skated my whole life. Those are kind of the superstars more so than anybody else, even though they're not as famous, or outside of skateboarding, no one knows who they are except for, Ryan Sheckler, whoever. But to me, every time I meet a pro skateboarder, it's still like oh my God, like I've seen all your video parts, whatever. But when I had interactions with some of them, and all they did was just say, do you want a picture? And they were nice, just a super brief thing. That had an effect on me as a kid where it was like, now you're my absolute favorite. And I remember other pros that I met where they were dismissive to me like that. And it wouldn't have taken a whole lot. I wasn't expecting much. But because they were dismissive like that, it really ruined my opinion of them. And it's not like I went talking shit, but I just didn't care anymore. I think those small little interactions that you do with people have such a huge effect on them that they end up spreading all of that to everybody else and tell everyone, oh my God, I had this cool experience with this person, I had this cool experience with this person. And something that I've noticed is as I've met more successful people, they're almost all really nice. I haven't really had a lot of negative experiences. And I used to think that successful people like that would be standoffish. And it kind of clicked with me that if they were standoffish, people wouldn't like them and they wouldn't be where they are today in the first place. Has that been something you've kind of experienced?
I think it's like you can't put everybody in one box. I mean, you hear these stories come out of, like the whole Ellen thing and then the Jimmy Fallon thing and, people in those environments. I think a lot of what it comes down to is the stress of what we all do. We're doing something that's in front of an audience every single day. So we have all this judgment, we have all these expectations to meet. And because that high stress, you might have a shorter fuse in these moments and you're a different person because of the environment that you're in, just the chaos. Like today, for example, we've got a 3:00 show. We came in, we traveled all night long to be here. And we had shows the night before and we're tired and we're trying to get everything happening. I got to do sound check and cue to cue. And so someone might walk up to me and ask me a simple question that I would love to give them the answer that they want to hear. Like, not to make me sound like a rock star, but if like in your situation, hey, can I grab a picture and autograph? And if I just took 3 seconds just to be like, absolutely, man, here you go. And just do it with a good tone. But I might be like so focused on my cue to cue that I might just be like, I'm sorry, I don't have time.
Yeah.
And those two phrases take about the same amount of time to say to somebody, but one will change that person's life forever if they were a fan of what you're doing. So just being cognizant of that, I think, is really important. I think you're right. More people are learning that over time.
Is that one of the main reasons that you do your backstage thing after your show where you invite, I guess you have to explain exactly what that is, but that's part of your show now, right? Is you bring people backstage to kind of show them stuff and have more interaction with them?
Yeah, I had that. As a kid, there was a magician that I really looked up to, and I wrote to him and said, is there any way I could meet you? And he allowed me to come backstage. He showed me how things operate, and it was a life-changing moment for me. I had no idea what happened behind the scenes of a show. And so I want to give people that same experience. And some people just want to come back and they're just curious and, oh, okay, that's what it's like back here. I thought there was more space, less space, whatever.
Sure.
But there's also some people that were like me and they want to follow this passion, whether it's magic or something in the arts, and that changes their perspective. It gives them both motivation to see something happening and also gives them an education on how things operate. And so I want to give that same experience. I also do this thing where I pull a kid up on stage every show because I got interested in magic when I got pulled up as a kid. I was 6 years old, saw a magician, became part of the show. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be on the stage. And I pulled up kids now every single show, told that story to a certain degree, and then I give them a little gift, a little magic trick. And I've had kids now grow up to become magicians from that moment, just like I have, which is a cool experience.
Yeah.
One of them, both of his parents are doctors, so I probably screwed him up pretty badly. I think he was on a path to medicine, and I pulled him off course.
Sure.
But there's, on my Google alerts, I see these magicians who are talking about the experience they had at my show when they were however many years old, and then now so that's a cool thing too. So those are the things that kind of keep me going.
Yeah. What are the next goals that you have that you want to achieve? Because obviously there's always more to grow. Like you can reach larger audiences, you can make more money, you can whatever. There's a lot of different things, but you are at a very good spot now where obviously like you're a grown man, you have your property that you enjoy where you live, so that's all covered. You have a good team built around you, so that's covered. You're in demand plenty, so that's kind of covered. Where are the goals then after that?
For me right now in this moment is to establish better balance.
Work way too much?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
You know, all the things that I'm over the top of, I need to be able to delegate some things better and put my trust in other people to bring those things to life. And then I check back in later in the process. That's not the case, you know, when you're first starting out. You just pour your entire soul into these things. Road life is difficult, as you know from your travels, and I got to remain fresh. So I want to pull back the number of shows that I'm doing. I want to make sure every show that I do, I'm able to give my 100% to that performance. And then I also want to be able to keep the creative process going and refresh my mind in those spots where I can find downtime.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can see people like Taylor Swift with that, where it's like not doing any touring for quite a while, and then you look breaking the record sales on, you know, the different stops because it's been a little while, so you build more of the hype. It's hard when there's just that much demand, though, because you don't want to disappoint people, right? Because people are hitting you up, they really want to see you, and for you to just say, nah, even though like you're protecting yourself, you're thinking about all those other people that you could be benefiting, and it's hard to then stop and say, no, I need to like protect my own mental health a little bit. How do you prioritize your mental health? What are some of the things that you do to take care of yourself? Do you have like a kind of routine? You know, like I discovered the Wim Hof breathing. I don't know if you know that, but like the 10 minutes of like guided breathing, sitting, not focusing on anything, does wonders for me. What do you do? That's
so funny. That's where my space is now. So I'm not like that deep into it, but I've just got this massage chair, and I'll go and I'll put in like I'll just YouTube something like a 10-minute guided meditation for, you know, whatever I'm feeling that day, anxiety or whatever, and I'll chill out. And it's amazing what just like 10 minutes can do. Different breathing things, different diet, nutrition things, just introducing different things to eliminate toxins, like iodine to flush out like heavy metals and stuff in your body. Again, all environment based. Like when you're on stage every day, you're inhaling haze fluid, which over time, you know, is probably not really good for you. So just taking a little bit of time out for some of those things, I think has been really helpful for me.
What's been the hardest part about touring as much as you do? Is it sleeping on a bus all the time, or what's been the most difficult part?
Yeah, you notice like when you go home and you get really like good sleep, you notice the difference for sure. It used to be that the engine noise of the bus would just kind of lull me to sleep, but now it's not so much. So I don't sleep. I don't probably hit my REM cycles like I should, you know, when the bus stops in the middle of the night to refuel, and I'm more alert. Diet is also a big thing. Like you get all this amazing food, but it's all catered in, you know, restaurant food, which isn't the healthiest. So probably those two things are the top of the list. I've started editing our rider a little bit to introduce some healthier options than so much sugar and sodium.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I drink kombucha like every day.
Kombucha's on our rider, exactly. Yeah, hummus and kombucha and like turmeric supplements and some good teas. And so, yeah, that's what's up.
Do you ever struggle with keeping up with enough energy for people? Because when you go to see things, I'm sure people are like, you're in town, let's go get a drink, blah, blah, blah. They're all excited about it. And you're like, but I have to do this again tomorrow. And then again the next day. And then again the next day.
Yeah, again, that balance, you know, being able to say no and be able to say yes at the right times and all that. Yeah, it's hard not to disappoint people, though. I want to get one more story out of you. So my favorite thing about what I do, or in general when you do something you care about for a living, is it's never a financial thing, such as like, you know, how you met that one person who became a magician, or, you know, many people who have become. What's a story of an experience you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you chose to pursue your passion for magic or illusions? I mean, I think about the places that I've been able to travel to that I would have never thought of being there. The people that I've gotten to meet, there's just, you know, there's so many. What's one for you that might help me trigger something specific for me?
Well, let's see. I guess one that I'm thinking of it because the Packer game started 15 minutes ago. No, I don't care that I'm missing it. But would be one time I was sitting, and I grew up a huge Packer fan. And I was like, I wonder if I could get a hold of a Packers player. The show's gotten big enough that, I probably could get a hold of somebody. And so I just sent DMs to, I don't know, a dozen of them. And then sure enough, one of the tight ends hit me back and was like, yeah, I could do an interview. We'll be back in town, for training camp during this day. So I set it up and drove out to Green Bay, got, a jersey of his number or whatever, and then went to the apartment building that a whole bunch of the Packers players live at, and then did a whole interview with them. And it was such a surreal thing. Granted, I'd interviewed people way more famous than him and stuff. But again, just being growing up a huge Packer fan, I was like, wow, what I've done for work has gotten me to a place where I can just do this type of a thing. Or I interviewed this dude, Son Real, who was my 5th most streamed Spotify artist last year. A big fan of his. And he came through Minneapolis and same thing, DM, any chance you'd do an interview? He's like, yeah, sure. I interviewed him. And in the conversation, I was like, thanks so much for taking the time, dude. I really appreciate, you all. And after the, off mic, I was like, I appreciate you taking the time. And he was like, dude, you really don't have to thank me. I did it because my manager told me I should do it because what you're doing is good. So good work. And that to me was like, whoa, you have at least some level of respect for what I've put my life into. That's wild and so cool. And that was just super meaningful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess my parallel to that growing up, my cousins and family all lived in Seattle, and they were huge Mariners fans. So by osmosis, I was a Mariners fan. And years later, one of the players hit me up and said, hey, I'm a fan. Would you ever come out and just do some magic for the team? And so they were playing the Braves, and my schedule, I think I just came back from an international date somewhere, and I was flying through Atlanta, and I was like, yes, our schedules have aligned. And so I did this whole show in the Mariners locker room.
Cool.
For all the players. And it was a really cool moment because, a lot of people that are my heroes and people who are just hugely successful were taking the time to hang out, with me and see what I did, but also because the environment was so different. There was no stage, there was no lights, and we had all this equipment because our truck was driving through as well. So they pulled the equipment in, and we kind of created this stage-like environment. I was doing some big tricks in a locker room. So it felt like something that had never been done before. And so that was cool as well.
Yeah, that's rad. I mean, you meet these people you look up to, and you have in your mind that these people are untouchable. They're these perfect beings in some kind of way. I don't know why, but I guess that's what you build them up to. And then you meet them and you realize that no, they're really good at this one thing specifically that you look up to them for, but not necessarily anything else. You know what I mean? They're just totally regular people. And in fact, you're probably better at a lot of things in life than they are, but they're really good at that one thing. So then it makes sense when they're like, oh, but the thing I'm really good at to them is probably really impressive.
That is so true. Yeah. I've never heard it in those words before, but that is exactly it. Because, to me, what I do is anybody can do it. I don't see, how this is impressive to anybody, and then people freak out and it's cool. And then, what you're saying, these people are the best on the planet at what they do. And it's how do they care about this? And they're going how do you do it? So that's a really cool thing. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. It's a funny parallel. Well, I'm going to let you go, 'cause I know you have to keep getting everything set up. I saw there's a helicopter or something you have to make appear. And I think you need more than 3 hours maybe to get that ready to do it in 3 seconds or whatever you do it on stage. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Man.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.